All right, and again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's post-impact webinar, Efficiency Through Technology is E-commerce Right for Your Co-op. My name is Brian Munson. I am the Business Development and Sales Manager for NCBA CLUSA, and I will be today's webinar moderator. Your webinar today is co-hosted by a mod up. Prepare for Impact is our exclusive webinar series. It's meant to explore key challenges central to the business operations of purchasing co-ops. In the lead up to the Impact Conference, recently took place about a month ago, October 4th through the 6th here in DC. We actually use these webinars as preparation for our workshop discussions. And with the conference now complete, our pivot is in these webinars is how do we use the webinars to build on the discussions that we had. So in one of the master classes, it was a table on technology efficiencies. One of the discussions that we had was the evolution of commerce online and how it has become predominantly digitally driven. So many of the forces that are driving that change, we want purchasing co-ops to be aware of, from the way that people buy to the workforce to technology. And our presenter today, Lisa Bordeaux, is going to walk us through all that. Before we begin, just a quick bit of housekeeping. Participant phone lines will be muted during this presentation to reduce background noise. There will be a chance to pose questions, just not verbally. If you have a question, type it into the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel that's on your screen. Questions will be collected and answered as time allows at the end of the program. We should have about 20 or so minutes to be able to do that. And lastly, NCBA CLUSA is recording this program. It will be archived on our website, and you will receive an email containing a link to the posted recording tomorrow. So you'll be able to listen to it again, share it with friends, colleagues, family, anyone that you think would find interest in this particular topic. So again, our panelist today is Lisa Bordeaux, owner, founder, and consultant at a mod up. Lisa has consulted with purchasing co-ops in 17 different industries, as well as hundreds of manufacturers, distributors, and industry associations. Some of these groups include IMARC, NAW, AD, CCA Global, and Sphere 1. Over the last 20 years, she's worked in business development, marketing, e-commerce, and learning. She spent 12 years at Blue Volt, which is an extended enterprise solution organization that serves purchasing co-ops. Long story short, Lisa knows a lot about this topic, and we're very thrilled to have her here. She was at Impact with us, and I think her table discussion was one of the most popular ones. So Lisa, we're happy to have you here today with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you to get started.
Thank you, Brian, very much. Appreciate the warm introduction and the opportunity to talk to the NCBA members. I think it's an important topic as we look at how technology is changing our daily lives. It is certainly changing the of customers and the businesses. So I want to talk a little bit about why a company would consider going digital, what's imperative about it today, what's driving that. Look at it even from the National Association of Wholesale Distribution the NAW does a publication every 5 years, Facing the Forces of Change. And so looking specifically at what forces they identify that I believe are driving the change to be in the digital space. Thinking a little bit about digital commerce versus e-commerce, and thinking about different ways that your members may be able to go to market creatively, I think is a really important area to discuss. E-commerce has traditionally been a B2C proposition, and as we look at B2B and the opportunities there, I think there's a variety of ways that you can tie the business more closely to the customer, and that would certainly include the ability for someone to purchase product digitally, but it also might include other things that I think are important to consider. And new technology as we see it coming available, what's the impact, what does it mean? And then specifically how cooperatives are looking at this problem and offering solutions to their members. What I've seen variety of cooperatives do, how it's working, and some recommendations there for folks. So why digital? Why now? In 2020, I think one of the big things that's happening 2 years from now, actually, is that the U.S. workforce is going through a pretty significant change. We're going from a scenario where we have 50% baby boomers in the U.S. workforce and 25% millennials to a situation where we have 50% millennials and 25% baby boomers. And I don't know if that causes consternation for some people, but I do believe that there's a significant difference, and we'll talk more specifically about the difference between the millennial generation and the baby boomers and how they operate as customers and employees has some definite impact on the business. And we'll certainly see a shift towards technology as many of the millennials have grown up using their phones. But even though we see this change happening over the next couple years, at the same time, there's industrial marketplace studies today that tell us that 93% of industrial buyers are using the internet to research their buying decisions. 91% of them will seek out another supplier if they don't find the information that they need at a website. And about 80% of those are using their smartphones to shop. And so mobile technology, mobile commerce, being able to enable your customers digitally is a critical topic for most of the members inside the cooperatives, the purchasing cooperatives that I've been working with. When we look specifically at what the Association of NAW is looking at, they've come up with the 5 forces. Typically, there's 5 forces of change that they recommend companies consider and develop some action plan around. And when you look at the executive summary for facing the forces of change, there's 3 that I think are very relevant for us to consider in terms of digital technology and drivers there. The first is the customer-centric landscape. For most companies, having spent a lot of time in electrical and in HVAC, what you saw in the past was that the product knowledge that lives at the distributor level in the heads of their employees, their counter guys, their inside guys, their outside guys, was really a significant pivot point for those businesses and a critical place for their customers to seek information. But now we're starting to see that customers are researching products online before they might reach out to an individual. And they've been trained by Amazon in their personal lives to really value transparency and immediacy in the digital transactions, and to be able to share some sentiment and feedback socially. So those things are different than they have been historically, and I think important to consider. I also look at that changing workforce and the idea that for years we've said 50% of the workforce in distribution is 55 or older, but we've been saying that so long that it's probably closer to 58, 60 now. And I think that you look at this talent cliff of individuals who are retiring both on the customer side and in the purchasing cooperative members side, and you realize that there's a huge amount of knowledge that companies are going to have to move from, an individual's head to some sort of systematic approach so that they can bring in people who have 2 years of experience that are going to replace someone who has 30 years of experience. And how they do that and how effectively they are focused on recruiting and getting the best and brightest of the future workforce, I think, is a critical piece. The advancing technology is probably one of the largest drivers here. As we look at e-commerce morphing into digital commerce and some of the investments and things that have happened there for e-commerce companies, it's very relevant for us to consider and to talk about. And then if you look at BIM, building information management is something that in some cases for some companies, people are being completely bypassed and the orders are coming electronically from the design spec process. And the product information management and the things that are important for individuals to be able to go and find, based on product information, becomes a vast web of data and information. And the Internet of Things, I think, is also driving some initiative here, and that enables things like automated order replenishment, and the ability for an individual customer to, have their inventory managed a little differently than it might have been in the past. And the sea of data on customers, data on your marketing initiatives, data around what products are moving, and the business's ability to look at that data and act on that data starts to become a very interesting and compelling reason for companies to make the move to digital. I want to point out that the change of the actual customer lifecycle in my years of experience has changed from the situation where you have customers and you develop relationship-based, business, and they seek you out because of that relationship. And now as we talk about moving the relationship to be, based on a digital transaction, it really becomes a different scenario. And a lot of what we look at is e-commerce that's focused on the the B2C space. But as we look at B2B, there are things that I think are important for you to understand and for your members to understand. And that is that the acquisition of new customers into the digital commerce sphere is probably one of the most expensive areas that you're going to have. And so that means that acquisition or acquiring customers is you need to have a strategy around it. And I think, that the customer lifetime value and how you think about a customer becomes then really focused on the recognition that profit comes later, and you can't have people that come and just use it once. It has to be a technology that, drives behavior and repeat transactions. And so onboarding that individual and engaging them and retaining them as a customer starts to become the language that you're using when you're thinking about the relationships that you have with your customers. And the idea of being able to aggregate product videos and reviews and do social promotion starts to become more relevant. And one of the things that I think most people don't think about when they're first starting out is this idea that in order to engage someone online, you have to have content for them to engage with. And so because we're shifting the nature of the relationship, part of it is that you have to bring something to the party, and that's something to do with content. When I think about the changing demographic and the impact on how the business looks, and we think about baby boomers, I think about the core traits of baby boomers. And historically, that generation has been more along the lines of, give me a call and let's, sync up. And they're a little competitive, and kind of the next generation, the Gen X, is a much smaller population, but they're typically grew up as latchkey kids. So they're self-reliant, and they might say, hey, send me an email. And then we move into the millennials, which is really starting to impact businesses. And their core trait is around immediacy and how quickly can I get what it is that I need or that I want. And they might say, private message me, send me private message through Twitter, send me, are you on Instagram, Facebook? And so the way that they communicate with each other becomes a little bit more of a closed loop. And as this continues to go on, we'll start to see Gen Z as they come into the workforce, and they are even more hyper-connected than, than the millennials. That has certainly an impact on how you hire. It has an impact on how you reach out to your customers and what sorts of tools are appropriate for engaging and working with them digitally. And then I mentioned the Internet of Things. This is an area that we see an enormous amount of growth potential and opportunities for us to be able to tie the customer more closely to the member business in a way that makes it less likely that Amazon or another large, commerce site could come in and disrupt that relationship. So how do we look creatively at enabling things that your customers use and you use, to be able to help assist some of that? And so I mentioned order replenishment. Some companies I have worked with in the past, we've gone through the process of actually creating stocked vans, and they provide to their customers a turnkey solution for inventory that automates the replenishment. So you wouldn't necessarily need to lease your own vehicle. You would lease it through this distributor, and it would come stocked with the inventory that you need. And each night when you, sync up, the solution is designed to reorder the inventory that you use that day, and you just drive by a branch location in the morning, pick it up, and you're off and running to the races. So different ways that we can use technology, enabling things to make it easier for your customers to do business with you. One of the things that's happened on the e-commerce side of things, as we've, kind of watched some of the companies go through the process and make investments, this landscape of solutions and technology offering has exploded. And there are now over 1,000 different companies that are competing in this space. And those might be things like, email solutions that provide personalization. So each one of your customers gets recognized as this guy's industrial and this guy is commercial. And our solution on the back end is going to customize all the communications to that individual so that they come in like a snowflake. They come in at a time that's optimized for them to open it when they're most likely to engage. And that can come via email, or that could come via a push notification on your mobile phone based on who that individual is. So it can customize content, it can customize message timing, it can customize the delivery channel and enable that customer, like the unique person that they are. There's also things that are associated with acquisition. How do we acquire customers? How do we do it organically? How do we do it through paid acquisition? And then, as you look at the analytics, there's an enormous amount of kind of this mushrooming of vendors that are working in this space of analytics that really are looking to provide optimization and testing options for companies. So if I think about the typical company that belongs to a cooperative, and I think about the electrical industry specifically, when I was working in the electrical industry, what I realized is that the top 200 electrical distributors, when you get to number 200, you're probably at about 15 million per year in sales. But there are about 8,000 electrical distributors, SIC codes, out incorporated. And so I know that from 201 down to 8,000, those businesses are much smaller. And for them to go digital, it's super challenging. And those are typically the companies that were, interested and working in cooperatives, because it allowed them to be, competitive with some of the bigger companies. So how do you think about that from a business perspective when you're trying to negotiate and navigate? And in some cases, we've seen companies invest big money and make bets that just were not successful. So part of what we want to do is educate and help the cooperatives so that they can help their members really maximize the investments that they're making digitally. So I think about what we're seeing in terms of some of the bigger companies, and those bigger companies are making some big dollar investments in this digital space. And part of the reason that we see them doing that is because Forrester actually predicts that by 2019, B2B digital commerce will be at $1.1 trillion in sales. And that's compared to B2C, which will be at that point at about 480 billion. And so if you think about Amazon and you think about them looking at their B2C business and then recognizing that the B2B business is better than double the size, if they can capture a percentage of it, it's good business for them. And Amazon looks at distribution and thinks to themselves, 2 points, 3 points on $1, that's really great for us, because ultimately they don't need to make a profit because there's so much float. They can live off the float of the business and the dollar volume that they have. So Amazon's making huge investments in this space. We've seen them grow, within a year, up from 400,000 industrial customers to 1 million in the U.S. So they're looking at how do we get into the equipment and supply space. Grainger is currently ranked as the 10th largest e-commerce retailer in North America, and about 65% of their sales are originating through digital channels. Home Depot is buying Interline brands, $1.63 billion. That is definitely a move from the B2C to B2B space. And as I mentioned before, when we look at BIM and the way that we see the customers of your members investing in technology tools that help them to procure better, smarter, faster, there's a lot of. So some of the opportunities that occur when we see this happening are happening because there's opportunities to shift the labor from physical labor to automation. So we have a business that we work with that has gone through the process of, normally their customers would, sheet metal workers would go and be in a situation where they, would cut a lot of pipe, right? And now the distributor is actually automating that and has a product code for it, so people could just order those. So it shifts the labor to the business that can do that at volume and less expensively. And so that presents some opportunities for the distributor. And a lot of distributors are not used to making front-loaded costs. The front-loaded cost of technology versus an incremental investment of hiring a new salesperson is very different for these guys. And so looking for ways that the business can actually get their arms around it, thinking about the value drivers. In the past, they've done loyalty programs, they take customers to dinner or on trips, and think about how that changes, particularly when we see the rise of Amazon and their Echo and Alexi and 2-hour delivery. Those are definitely transitions that we see inside of the business. And, if you want to do personalization and automation at scale, because we recognize it's the future, it makes sense for the cooperative to look at those opportunities from an organizational standpoint and determine what ways they can assist the members to leverage that technology as a group, them all doing it individually. So options would be for a cooperative to select a technology suite or solution for commerce and build it in a way that is multi-tenant, so that the individual members would be able to just put a brand or a face onto that commerce site. I think things that need to be discussed and considered are, who's going to support it in the business? What economies of scale can we get? Where do those live? Product information management, content, commerce, those are big time investments for individual businesses to undertake. How do we do that and provide some benefit of doing it as a cooperative? And is there maybe even a potential revenue stream for the cooperative in a way that is built like a service package? So that, would be one option. The other option that I've seen and worked with cooperatives to do is to create a negotiated package, and that is essentially identifying vendors that we or they believe that are going to provide significant, value to the members to engage with, and make it a little easier for them so they're not trying to navigate those 1,000 vendors in the digital commerce technology space, but you're providing them kind of a subset of that list and potentially negotiating some sort of a deal with the vendors for your members to do it, through the organization, and maybe look for some incentives for them to get it done. I think the other thing that needs to be discussed and considered is the product information management issue is going to be an issue for anyone embarking in a digital commerce initiative. And that, I think, depends on the industry. In some industries, we've seen that get solved. And potentially even years ago, we saw that happen with industry data exchange in the electrical industry. That was started as a consortium, and they're aggregating and normalizing product information and product data so that it can be used by all of the businesses in that industry. But not everyone has had that happen in their industry, and as a result, it may become an issue for the cooperative. It really makes sense to do it, in part because as a group you have leverage that the members may not have individually. And there's also some options if somebody is going through and editing product information and, data set and category and cleaning that you could leverage that in a cloud solution. So one company's efforts can benefit the other businesses, and they're not doing this. If I were sitting in a, cooperative leadership position today, one of the first things that I would do is I would take a good hard look at my members' websites, and I would create a tech readiness scorecard. And I would go through and look at their websites, and I would come up with a score for them and get an idea of where the members are today. And I would survey the members to see where they are in the process, how they're thinking about it, and create a task force with a mix of kind of tech forward members that can become a steering committee. And I would likely, it depends on your organization. If you are, like IDI and fortunate enough that you've got IT people in the business already, then you're in a little different position than a cooperative that does not have that. And so really look at, do we need to bring someone in who understands the technology and the business? And does that someone need to be internal or external? And where do we go for that sort of tech leadership? Because it just accelerates your ability to move forward quickly. And I also think it's important to keep your mind open and think bigger than e-commerce. Think about efficiency. Think about your members' customers. Where are the potential places that we could create some disruption, some incredible improvement that changes the way that we do business? Where's the ATM machine for banking in your members' businesses? And how do we use that to tie the customers of our members more closely to the member business? This is just an example of what I think would go into a little scorecard for a member's website. Can the customer see your location? Can the customer see the members, how many locations do they have, and can I see them? And can I see my order status? Can I see my transaction history? Can I see any promotions or sales that are happening? Can I see product information? Can I get help and ask a question? And, is the website truly the hub of the business? Does the sales team use it too? Because if you think about the potential of a solid, great website, it can become that. And I think it should become that for members that are looking to the, long-term viability of their business. And, to be ready to kind of take the next step, I would check to see if it's mobile compatible. And I think that those things then become an indicator of, I think our members are in a good place, or, I think our members really, have an uphill battle here, and we need to support and help them get there. So that's the prepared content that I had for today. I wanted to, Brian, open it up to you and see if there are questions or things that came up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Lisa, thank you for that. It's really when you kind of open it up, it's a thorny issue, but like you sort of illustrated, there are some opportunities in there for the current sort of infrastructure within purchasing co-ops to take advantage of some of this stuff. I would be interested to know, as we wait for some of the folks on the line to ask a question, what, at the Impact Conference, what was the general feeling? I know that, you guys only got to spend about, 25, 30 minutes or so talking, about these kind of concepts. And then we had some group discussion about some of the other things that people were talking about at other tables about technology efficiency. But at your table, what was one of the big questions that people were coming to you to ask about? Like, was it like, what is the opportunity, or why is Amazon in this space, or what was sort of the 2 or 3 things that really bubbled to the top in your discussion?
In our discussion, the question that was on most people's minds was, where the heck do I start? And, this is so outside the norm of what I'm used to talking about that it's kind of a foreign language. And so as you look at it and you identify, I think that in our conversation, it appeared to me that it's similar to what I see in the member businesses of the cooperatives. There's 1 or 2 that are on the front line and that are driving initiatives. We look at some organizations that I've worked with in the past, and they are well down the path of providing these types of solutions, but the majority of them aren't. And so the question is, where do we begin, and how do we help our members get our minds around the fact that, this is a critical component of their business? And, some of them were even saying, I need to ask my members if they have a digital plan or a succession plan, because there's so much disruption that's going to happen for these guys. Remember video stores. So I think that there's definitely an element of, holy cow, where do I begin? And how do I help the members that are crawling and keep the members that are well down the path happy? Because, that's kind of the future of the co-op.
Sure. Now, was your general sense from the folks in that room, but also just in the other folks that maybe you've worked with in the past, or that kind of call you up to maybe bounce off ideas? I heard a couple people say at the conference, well, Amazon's not a threat to my business. And what you're illustrating here is that if you're in the B2B space, Amazon is kind of coming for you, regardless of what industry that you're in. And so how, what would you say to folks that are sort of thinking that, well, and I don't know if it's coming from a place of, well, I'm not going to be there, so what difference does it make? Or just kind of like, they just really don't believe that, that's going to happen. How do you get to the leadership and change their mind? Because from what you're describing, it has to come from top down in terms of the co-op to the members. And if there's no leadership within the members, then, maybe the co-op is going to think that, hey, this isn't a thing. So how do you, what do you do in that situation?
I would suggest that, you kind of have to prepare for eventualities, right? And in some cases, it's looking at what contingency things are out there. And that conversation, if it were me, I would say, Amazon just purchased Whole Foods. So what happens if tomorrow Amazon acquires Grainger? How does that impact our business? And what does that mean to us? And what things can we do today that ensure that doesn't become a threat when they have, locations and the ability to deliver products that potentially we deliver. So, I think that to say that Amazon is not a threat to your business today may be a valid thing to say. But I would suggest that if you spoke to Amazon, they would tell you that, it is their intent to be the largest, be the largest commerce company in the world. And in order for them to do it, it's going to take a variety of things. Ultimately, Amazon gets the fact that a customer-centric landscape is the landscape. And so they don't really value brands like traditional businesses value brands, and they don't really, value their vendors and their providers the same way that other companies do. In many cases, they bring out, they just watch to see what people are buying, what are the high volume, high profit items, and then they throw an Amazon logo across it and sell it for 2 points less. There's an enormous amount of opportunity that happens when you're operating the way that they operate, and you have the data to be able to make those decisions and make those bets. So I think that, anyone who's selling anything today should be looking closely at where they're moving, and should be looking very closely at ways that they can enable their customers' businesses and enable that in a way that cannot be disrupted easily.
I think that's really important, what you're saying. I've got a question that came in here. Examples of successful strategies that co-op members have used to transition the email, fax, rep written order to digital commerce. This person is saying they have a very low percentage of current orders that come through, that come into their members through digital commerce. So it looks like he's, trying to change the minds of his members' customers, to kind of bring them into the new era.
Yeah. So can you, the part about the email, getting customers to move from email to digital, can you repeat that part of the question?
Sure. It's just, I think they're looking for examples of successful strategies that co-op members have used to transition the email, fax, rep written order to digital commerce.
The email, fax. Oh, the email and fax. Yeah. Okay. So, there is a whole ton. This could be a webinar by itself of, things that could potentially be issues. First of all, I would say that in order to understand and provide a valuable answer, an informed answer to this, I would need to better understand what the digital kind of platform looks like and how customers are currently enabled. In some cases, I've seen member websites with digital commerce that are so clunky and painful that, that I'm not sure how their customers can navigate it. I think that, there needs to be a list of things that your customers should be able to do seamlessly. And there are a number of companies that I've worked with in the past that have identified, the top 5, being able to see inventory status, being able to see your transaction history, being able to see past orders and reorder those items are things that are kind of baseline, right? So assuming that you enable those things and you do it in a way that is not painful for it's not like we can just set up a clunky shopping cart and hope that our customers are going to place industrial, large orders there. That's not necessarily how it's going to work. I think part of that is actually living and working with your customers and looking for kind of pivot points for them to engage with you digitally. And in some cases, I think that there's opportunities that are not necessarily related. In the very beginning, one of the things that I advocate for is looking at tools that make it easier for your customers to communicate with your inside sales guys. If I was a member company right now and I had done nothing so far, the first thing I would do is stand up a mobile little application that my customers could use to ping an inside salesperson and have a tree answer, so that they're not just chatting one-to-one with an inside guy who might be busy, but I can respond to that almost in a call center kind of mentality, and I can send them their order information. Just make it super easy for your customers to ask you a question and get what they need. And then I'd start to look at what are the things that make sense for that customer to order from me digitally. Are there things that they reorder with frequency? Can I look at a customer's order history and automate items in that? Like, hey, we went back and we looked at the data on your account, and we see that you order these products every, 3 weeks. So how about if we just prepare that for you and we send you that shopping cart and you can just add and subtract what you want. Super easy. So that it makes it a little easier for the customers.
Yeah, I think True Value mentioned something like that, right? At the event, at the Impact, I think that they were doing something like that, where they automated it for them, and their members were like, "Oh my gosh, this is mind blowing," and they really like that. So I think that that's spot on. My question for you is, in terms of well, there's two questions. In terms of that solution that you can ping your customers, is there something where you can just, pay a flat fee and, you get access to the app, or is some of this native where you have to build it? Because I think a lot of what you've described here is all very important and necessary. But to your point of the 201 to the 8,000, many of those groups may not have the cash on hand to do it, and even maybe some of the co-ops don't have that, or they have trouble mobilizing it. So are there sort of turnkey solutions that are relatively inexpensive that people can bring online?
Yeah, there are. And, I wouldn't say that it's as easy as just, I wouldn't say it's as easy as just turning the on button. There definitely is work that needs to be done around it, but, we're not talking $100,000. We're talking, probably $5,000 to $10,000 investment up front, and then some sort of monthly licensing fee for the application that I mentioned that's mobile, and would just provide you a digital entry point or a digital channel for your customers that you can start to manage from, a business perspective. I think there's a lot of goodness associated with that, because you start to collect email addresses and a digital, path back to those customers, and you take it away from the idea that the guy quits and takes his cell phone with him and you lose that contact point. So I think there's a lot of reasons to, to really look at those types of solutions and start, integrating them into the flow of the business and learn from that, make a small investment and call it kind of a pilot or an easy entry point, and then just continue to expand from there.
Now, where are you finding, Lisa, that e-commerce fits into the business intelligence sort of discussion? Because a lot of what you've mentioned, and the way to enable the co-op and its members to, defeat the disruption or disrupt the disruption itself, involves access to data. And we had a couple webinars with Medulus Systems and Cometrics, and Paul was at the Impact Conference from Cometrics talking about business intelligence. Where does sort of e-commerce fit into that discussion? If a co-op is really, say they score really low on and their members score really low on the tech scorecard that you are suggesting people do, what do they do first? Do they invest in gathering that data first, and then they can sort of make some decisions from there? Should they look at the e-commerce just so they're not missing out on that while they're building the business intelligence? Where would you have them start if it was just a baseline? Okay, we need to catch up, and we've got some money. What do we do first?
Well, I think that getting your arms around so first of all, asking a technology person how they feel about BI is like, love the question. Thank you. I think that it's a lot easier to get your arms around business intelligence and data and analytics when you have some aggregated data and analytics to start. I think in a lot of cases, the cooperatives that I've worked with don't have, the POS information from their members. And so that would be, kind of the first question that I would ask. What data do you have today on member sales? How do you get it? What does it look like? And, your members and their ERP solutions, how varied is that in your space? Are they all using different things? Some on Excel, some in Infor, and a myriad of options in between. And what information did they have on that customer relationship? And so, kind of just take a broad brush stroke at BI, like what does that look like in our space? And then, the more disparate that information is, you might look at putting in a benchmark or two, like, oh, we're going to work on getting this or that. but I would be pretty focused on the commerce perspective initially, because one of the things that the commerce gives you, and digital commerce, if you do it right, is a lot of information about what's effective and what isn't. And that just provides you with so many ways that you can measure the effectiveness and put your dollars behind the ones that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I want to encourage the rest of the folks on the line, if they have any other questions. I've got a few more here, but Lisa, you mentioned the Internet of Things, and my head goes to the platform economy, and people powered, internet enabled businesses like Uber and Airbnb and everything like that. Is there a piece of this e-commerce platform economy? Is there some type of connection there? Like, are people talking about those things in the same circles? Our keynote speaker was making the case that people need, that purchasing co-ops have an opportunity to look at the platform economy and you use that model, be inspired, maybe even work with some of those people to re-disrupt the business and find ways to that they can find the customer and make acquisition easier or things like that. Are you seeing alignments between this digital commerce and the platform economy and where those intersection points are?
I think that from the perspective of, if you think about how the Internet of Things is applied today in distribution, in most cases, what we're talking about is the larger organizations looking at tracking their trucks. Where are our trucks? And on every vehicle that someone drives, we can see what the tire wearage is, and we can see just basically putting some technology into that component. There's also RFID on products, where we see in the warehouse tracking of orders based on the RFID. And that's primarily where I've seen the Internet of Things kind of get applied. However, as we look at those things expanding and we look at the idea of, order replenishment and truck replenishment for our customers, really looking for ways that, how do we extend what we might internally do or, internalize here in a way that is meaningful for our members, and how do we tie some transactional value to that so that we can put dollars against it. So I do believe that there is, symbiosis between those things. And I think that the more effective customers are, and not just identifying what they need internally for their business, but really thinking about it from the more extended enterprise. How do I use what brings value to me in a way that I can help my customer do business better, different, smarter, faster, and be a better customer and, a more profitable business, so that I know that they will survive and continue to thrive and purchase from me.
I think that's a great way to describe what the keynote was getting after, was using what brings value to me, like the co-op, enables my members to improve the customer experience. In brief, is how, if somebody asked me for 150 characters, that's great. Okay, we had something come in here. Person says, "While I see Amazon as a serious competitive threat, I recognize that their Achilles heel is the lack of personal interaction. I maintain full online presence, but regard e-commerce as one of many tools that I can offer members. I would not want to push customer service to an online platform. That is where Amazon resides, and they will be able to outspend my IT budget by orders of magnitude." Sounds like more of a comment. What are your thoughts on that,
I think
Lisa?
that's absolutely true. I think that I think that the idea of being able to communicate with a human is critical. I think it's been important, particularly, in the past, as we've seen, the relationship has been the primary, touch point between the member business and their customers. And, as we look at those relationships changing and people retiring and the transition happening, I think of the e-commerce option as really, it's another branch location for most members. And that is not meant to replace the service and the solutions that you provide to your customers. I think that is a critical, it's a critical piece of the market and will continue to be so going forward. But to not have the digital branch available as a way for some, customers and potentially more future customers, optimized and functioning and running in a way that is, amazing in terms of a customer experience, I think is a shortcoming that's going to become more and more challenging as we go forward.
Sure. I think that's another great way to look at e-commerce and the digital commerce platform is that, it's another branch location, and why wouldn't you want to provide excellent service there as well? So, good comments from the folks online, and obviously from you. Insight here that you shared, Lisa, is tremendous. I don't have any other questions, and unless anybody else has anything to contribute on the line, I want to wrap this up and thank you, Lisa. This has been awesome. If anybody has anything else that they want to ask, please don't hesitate. You can reach out to me, and I will forward your questions to Lisa. You can email me at B as in Brian, last name Munson, MUNSON @ncba.coop. If you're looking for more information on purchasing cooperatives, feel free to reach out to me as well. I encourage everybody that's on the line to subscribe to our Co-op Weekly e-newsletter, where we talk about purchasing co-ops as part of the larger co-op ecosystem that's out there. We'll have upcoming information on the Impact Conference as well as the Co-op Festival. We would love to see purchasing co-ops represented. My ultimate vision for purchasing co-ops at the Co-op Festival, which is essentially a celebration of cooperatives and their businesses and their members of what they do in communities, is to really have a whole line of purchasing co-ops with their specific what they do on even the B2B back end. And it could be insulation, it could be roofing, it could be industrial parts, it could be fasteners, it could be whatever, and have it part of a larger construct. So people walk through and they see, maybe it's like a house, and they can see, oh, there's my HVAC, there's my flooring, there's my roof. Wait a minute, this is all part of a purchasing co-op. I would love to be able to walk people through something like that, where it's almost like a deconstructed experience of 10, 15, 20 different purchasing co-ops, talking about how they contribute to where people sleep at night. Does that make sense? I would love to see that. So maybe we can work on that with some of your network, and maybe some of the folks on the line will be interested in that. But anyways, all that kind of good stuff. Co-op Weekly, be part of it. Lisa, if you have any closing words, I'll leave the floor to you. Otherwise, we'll put a bow on this thing.
Truly a pleasure. I think that, my only thing is, it's my personal belief that the members of cooperatives and cooperative businesses are what make our country a great country to be in. And without the work that you guys do, we'd all be working for either Coke or Pepsi, and they'd own everything. I think it's tremendously important and valuable to support co-ops and their members. And I'm just delighted to have an opportunity to talk to you guys about what I think is a pretty important initiative for your members and for the cooperative itself.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to know you, and it was great to see you a few weeks ago here in DC. For everyone on the line, we will get this over to you, the recorded version of this, tomorrow, so feel free to share it. Again, thank you to Lisa at A Mod Up for leading us today through this topic on e-commerce, digital commerce, and the future. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Lisa, I'll give you a shout after this, and we can recap. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds great. Thanks, Brian.